You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
PackersTalk.com. Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your game tickets from the longtime trusted source in Wisconsin, Ticket King. Visit their locations in Milwaukee and Green Bay, or just go to their website, theticketking.com. Again, that's theticketking.com.
Packers Therapy.
It's Packers Therapy, and it is back. It's Chris and Dave, Season 12. Dave, I don't think that they imagined we would last, like most podcasts, 12 episodes. But somehow we've survived into our 12th season. What are we, like 270 podcasts into this thing now? Something like that? Some crazy number like that?
It's at least, yeah. We're like the Simpsons of NFL podcasting.
We are.
We're the 60 Minutes.
There are not a lot of podcasts, Packers or otherwise, that last into their 12th season. And, we've had some stretches, too, where we've kind of been away for a couple weeks at a time for this and that.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you can count on it from preseason through the regular season and postseason for the Packers. We've been around. So congratulations, Dave. You've made it to your 12th season of NFL podcasting.
Yeah, I don't know what I received for that. But, it seems like...
I know what you got.
Oh, what did I have?
You have received your very own PayPal account. Congratulations.
I have.
You want to talk
I
about
have.
that?
I think
Exactly.
that coincides with our 12th season of, if we're going to do 12 seasons, we want to do something a little bit different this season.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, because, let's be candid about this. Dave and I are cash whores. That's what it's all about. So we've set up a PayPal account, PackersTherapy@yahoo.com. I thought it was nice the way we chose Yahoo after they're going into the toilet and being bought out. It's only appropriate that Packers Therapy would associate with Yahoo.
Yeah.
So we now have a PayPal account, and actually it's something that people have asked us about for a couple of years. Back in the old days, we used to have sponsors when we were back on Packer Chatters. That's a long time ago now. And there were sponsors, and so that was nice. But after we left Packer Chatters, there were not sponsors that went on. And we joked about it from time to time. Believe it or not, Dave and I are not in this for the money, never have been. But people would say, well, you guys set up a PayPal account. And, we were kind of against that. I thought it was, kind of tawdry. You're on there shilling. It's like when I work for public radio, you're out there, begging people to give you money. And, truth be told, Dave and I are actually both employed. We're on the Huber program, but we're both employed and don't really need the money. However, it's nice, and some people suggested we should do it. And after a couple of seasons of resisting, we've gone ahead and set up a PayPal account, PackersTherapy@yahoo.com. But we just don't want to say, send us money. We want to, give something in return. So Dave and I were talking about this, and we decided if you're going to give us 50 cents a podcast, which we do about 20 of these a season, so $10. If you give $10 through the PayPal account, we will produce a special podcast just for those people that have given at least $10. If you want to give $50 or $100 or even $1,000, we'll take that, of course. But if you give $10, at the end of the season, we'll put together a special thank you podcast for those people. And believe me, it will be every bit as poorly and amateurishly produced as the regular podcast is.
Yeah, we will not prepare for that one either.
No.
We'll make it consistent.
In fact, we may even prepare less for that one to make it worth your $10. So,
yeah. But we're not just going to take your money.
No,
it's not just for a new TV or anything. We want to do something Packer related.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We want to have money that we can roll up and snort our cocaine through. That's the important thing about Packers Therapy. So anyway, Dave is you are the money guy here. Well, I guess we both have money jobs, but you're the money guy, so you're keeping track of how much and how much have we received so far yet, Dave?
$0. I'm watching
zero.
right now, and we're still solidly on zero.
We are on zero. So every week we'll acknowledge those, and even if you've given less than $10, we will acknowledge you every week, the people that give the money, and we will keep then a total. We have a goal in mind for how much we would like to raise to the PayPal account. So we will keep track, and we'll tell you on percentage basis every week of how we're doing. This is sure to be a massive failure and a great embarrassment for Dave and I. But then again, ever since we opened up the mics the first time, this has been a massive failure and a great embarrassment. So at this point, what does it matter, right?
You can't add to infinity.
You cannot.
That's right.
You cannot do that. So there you are, Chris and Dave laying on our backs and opening our legs, as we are wont to do here on Packers Therapy. So anyway,
we still haven't mentioned what we're going to use the money for.
That's our business. Oh
no! I think I want to say we want to go to a Packer game.
Okay, that is the truth. So we, Dave lives in St. Louis. I mean, we've made no bones about that. He lives far away. I don't live nearly so far away. I'm in a little town called Plover. That's not that far from Green Bay. So, but it costs money. You got to put some gas in the car. You got to stay at a Motel 6 or something like that. You got to buy the tickets. So what we want to do with the money is we want to go to a Packer game, and perhaps that podcast that we do for the special $10 plus donors, maybe it'll feature our travelogue, our adventures going to Lambeau Field for a Packers game. And believe me, when Dave and I roll, we roll in the good seats too. So this is going to cost. This is going to cost some money.
That goal is high.
You're damn right. I mean, we're not sitting in row 50 in the north end zone. Okay, let's be very clear about that. We roll kind of between the 40s, if you know what I'm talking about here. So anyway, you give us some money, PayPal. It's PackersTherapy@yahoo.com. We have a goal in mind how much it's going to cost for us to roll in the kind of luxury we're used to. And then we will go to a game. We'll tell you about it on that special podcast for all the people good enough to give. And it might be fun. And on the other hand, come on. 20 podcasts a year, come on.
No, you're good at asking for money.
Hey, remember I used to do this professionally, remember?
Yeah, that's right. Is that how you do it? You'd say, come on.
That's how we did it at public radio back in the day. Yeah,
It's very effective.
Yeah, if you go to Starbucks every day and you get that black iced tea unsweetened with a butter croissant, that's $5.17. I'm just imagining here. Actually, it is $5.17. What if you took one of those a week? Just one of those a week. And you gave it to Chris and Dave, your favorite podcasters, right?
Yeah. It's like Sally Struthers all over.
Exactly.
It just eats at your heart.
Yeah, just help a couple of poor white middle-aged guys go to the Packer game.
I would think we're helping people with their guilt of getting this free content for 12 seasons. And what we're trying to do is make you feel better and make us feel better. Everyone feels better about this.
It's sort of a missionary thing that we're doing.
Yes, it really
Perhaps
is.
even in the missionary position. So, anyway, enough of that crap. There was a preseason game. The first one, when we initially had talked about this, we thought there'd be 2 preseason games by now. But of course, the Hall of Fame game was mercifully canceled. It cost me a lot of money. I had to pay off the guys striping the field in Canton to get that game canceled. So that was a good investment. I'll need to get that recouped also during.
Hold on, I'm going to ask you. I want to ask you a question. You really hate preseason games.
I despise it's a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, I see. For me, I like watching preseason games. It's better than not having any Packer football. It's a non-stress version of Packer football, so I can watch it and just sort of evaluate guys up-and-comers and second-string, third-string guys, and the score is irrelevant. I don't ever get mad for losing a preseason game.
But it never matters, though. We see guys, like right now I'm watching a tape of the game. I see Micah Hyde making a great interception, right?
Yeah.
Terrific.
Yep.
And what does that mean, though? Does that mean Micah Hyde's going to have a great season? Well, it never means anything, guys. When you see him in the preseason, it never translates to reality. So it's like every year, Charlie Brown getting that football yanked out from him. This is the same kind of deal. It doesn't. If it meant that the guys I see who look, great, who are all Oneida, practice field, all Nitschke field, if that translated to the regular season, this would be worthwhile. But instead, you're seeing guys going up against the second team, or you see, guys against the third team. You don't really know what to make of it, and then someone winds up getting hurt. So not only doesn't it mean anything to the regular season, it can actually screw up somebody's season by getting him hurt in August.
Yeah.
So
that happened last year.
Yeah, well, exactly. And the Packers season was dramatically changed as a result of Jordy Nelson's injury in Pittsburgh last year. Not that he wouldn't have gotten hurt in the first game of the regular season. I mean, that's possible as well. It just seems this is just kind of a waste. I'd be happier if they had 2 preseason games. As it was, we saw Joe Callahan against Marquise Williams in the first half, second half. How do you evaluate that? I mean, how do you evaluate that Callahan had a really good 2-minute drive at the end of the first half? I mean, who was Cleveland playing at that point? And then when Williams comes in, he doesn't look as good in the second half, but he's playing with the third team, and I'm not sure, what Cleveland was throwing out there other than having Joe Schobert playing for him at that time. So if I knew what I was seeing in the preseason had any meaning for the regular season, I might be more interested, but I'm not sure we can make those kind of evaluations.
Well, hopefully you can see some trends. They clearly want to establish the rushing game, and that seemed to be fairly successful early and late. But and that was against Cleveland's first defense early in the game. It seems that the tight end might be more part of the offense.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, but I guess you're right. I mean, it's a maybe. There are things that I can see. I mean, I want to see how big Eddie Lacy is right now. And frankly, he didn't look that different to me.
No, I guess he looked more like he did maybe in his rookie season, But
maybe.
But I was talking about this. I was watching with my son, and I just think, the guy's big, I mean, he's always going to be big. It's just that instead of being kind of, portly and heavy set like he was, in the playoff game against, Phoenix when he couldn't finish his long run. He's going to be, better able to finish off plays, So
yeah, but I mean, you don't want him to be small. I mean, I think he may not nearly be as effective. I mean, he moves piles. He never goes down, or at least he doesn't very easily. I want him to stay that way, but I couldn't remember how much bigger he was last year. He just looked the same to me.
Yeah,
and I thought there was
a
picture out there. Yeah. Although there was a picture out there during the OTAs somewhere in the winter or early in the spring that made him look like he had lost a ton of weight. Do you remember that?
I remember. I didn't see it. I remember hearing about it. He wasn't dressed in his football gear though, right? He was dressed in his workout gear.
And it might have been just a trick of the shot. He might have had a baggy T-shirt or something that you couldn't really tell. But I thought there was at one point they thought he lost a ton of weight, which didn't make sense. I mean, no one loses that much weight as you're working out. It would have seemed weird if he'd have lost 30, 40 pounds, right after the season. So getting down 10, 20 and kind of getting back to where he was as a rookie, that would be a real positive, and that's a sign of the preseason you want to see.
Well, he ran well in the first series. What did he have, like 24 yards and 4 carries, something like that? I mean, he ran real well. Now, I'm assuming the Browns had their first team defense in there, but even if they did, I mean, it's the first real contact of the season, and everyone knows it's preseason, so were they going full out? I mean, it's hard to know, but it was better than him not looking good. It was better than, say, James Starks getting tackled in the end zone for a safety on their next possession. I mean, so it was good. It was okay, but I don't know if we can say, Lacey's in the best shape of his life, he's gonna be more like the guy that we saw his first couple of seasons. I don't know if we can make that leap, based on a handful of carries in an August game that doesn't mean anything.
The other thing I wanted to see, I wanted to see what Jared Cook looked like.
Right.
Just, what does he look like? I hear all these stories that this guy looks the part. He's fast. He can stretch the defense down the middle, which is they desperately needed last year. I want to see that happen. And although he only caught 2 passes, he certainly looks the part,
yes.
right?
Oh, yeah.
He's a tall dude, and he's big, and made a couple of catches. I mean, he was targeted twice and caught both. So I don't know for sure whether Jared Cook's going to be the answer at tight end, but what I saw makes me kind of excited about it.
Yeah, he does move well, and I don't know what kind of offense they were running. He's getting balls from Joe Callahan. I don't know what that means especially either. But yeah, I mean, he looks like he's going to be an upgrade from Richard Rodgers, who, by the way, looks. You talk about a guy who looks different. I mean, he looks much smaller. Last year he looked like a tackle out there, because he was so big. He looks more tight end size now. But I think Cook's going to be an improvement over what they had there. So yeah, I think that's probably a good thing, but it's really tough to know what his performance is going to mean when we translate it to real games. It's encouraging. He seems to move okay, but what's the value there? In fact, I'm watching the game tape now. He just caught one of those little passes where he jumps off the line and does a little square out. I mean, he gained 5 yards on it or so. Yeah, I mean, that's okay, but is that a sign for optimism? I guess it's good he didn't get hurt.
Yeah, he didn't get hurt. Yeah. Well, and like I said, he looked the part. Now I'll look forward to next week to see, if he kind of improve on it. If Aaron Rodgers plays, will he look for him? I just don't see the preseason as being a complete waste. I get the injury part, but being a complete waste of time, there are things to be excited about. And I think there have been preseasons where I feel like the Packers, they're set this year. They're going to be a good team. They've got their backups seem good. And there are other years where I feel like, man, their second, third teams are not that good. Their first string, they got a bunch of holes everywhere. I don't feel very good about this season. So I think you can kind of get a general trend in the sense of how the team is looking through preseason. I like to watch that. I like watching without the stress, too. I mean, that's a real benefit to me on the preseason.
Well, that is true. I mean, but part of the fun of being a fan, right, is having that stress and that edge where it means something. And otherwise you're just, kind of watching. And as I'm watching the tape here as we're doing this podcast, I see Aaron Rodgers, standing on the sidelines, and that isn't very exciting to me. I'm glad for Joe Callahan that he got his moment in the sun, and in the second half Williams got, a chance to play on, a big field in front of a lot of people and all that kind of stuff. I mean, good for those guys. But I'd much rather see Brent Huntley, which would have been great, but he's out with that ankle injury. Don't know how serious that's going to be. And, just to see what Rodgers has. It's tough to make an evaluation. And as I recall, last year, Dave, what did they do in preseason? Did they go 2-2 last year?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And did you imagine that they were going to, be 6-0? I mean, that's how they started the regular season. And I don't know that after watching the preseason that I was like, oh yeah, this is a team that's going to blast out of the blocks here. And, and there have been seasons where they've looked great in preseason and started out 1-2, and the opposite way around, where they've, struggled, looked bad, been 1-3 or something like that. And, especially last year when they lost Jordy Nelson, I didn't think they were going to win their first 6 games. And the preseason always seems to be kind of a sucker's bet.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, I when I read analysis and people will say thumbs up, thumbs down on these guys in practices too. They'll say so and so had a good practice, and the next day they have all of their thumbs down. I think, well, which one is it? Are they trending up or trending down? So it is a bit of a tease. I mean, Joe Callahan. I think I listened to the post game show, WTMJ yesterday. As a podcast, and they talked about Joe Callahan a lot. I mean, this guy, if he makes the team, it will never play. I mean, it really is a meaningless conversation to have Joe Callahan. It's a neat story. Went to Wesley College, which
New Jersey, right?
Yeah, I guess in New Jersey or Maryland.
Oh, okay.
Is it Dover, Maryland?
Delaware then maybe. If it's Dover, it's probably.
Oh, Dover.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's probably Delaware. Yeah.
Delaware. That's. I mean, it's a great story for him. He played in front of maybe 5,000 people every time he played before, and now he's in front of tens of thousands. That's a neat story. But you're right. In terms of my ultimate goal is how good are we going to be? Are we going to beat teams in the regular season? Are we going to the Super Bowl? Watching these two quarterbacks kind of duke it out was kind of meaningless. I was looking forward to see Brett Hundley, because if he's the real deal, then we should really clean up in the preseason. That was when in years where we had Mark Brunell and Ty Detmer, we were winning all those preseason games because our quarterback was always better.
Yep.
And we get beat by teams that have Josh McCown.
Sure.
How do you say
I've heard it pronounced all three ways.
And I feel like Josh McCown has been in the league for the last 30 years.
It seems like it, doesn't it?
Doesn't it seem like that? There has been a Josh McCown floating around, usually with the Bears, for like 1,000 years.
Aren't there like two of them and they're brothers or something like this? I don't.
Maybe that's the problem.
It just seems like they're all over the place.
Yeah, they are. They never go away.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're the ones who come in and light us up with our second and third teams, and we always seem to lose those games. So I was looking forward to seeing Brett Hundley come in and put on a show, but apparently, he's hurt, and have to wait and see. But relatively speaking, the Packers seem to be healthy.
Right.
They didn't come out of this game with much injuries, and they're really not. I've just hopefully not jinxed it, but it feels like they're relatively healthy right now. It's other than Jeff Janis. I guess maybe know a little bit more. I knew his hand was in ice, but he broke his hand.
Yeah, he broke his hand, I think, on Wednesday. The game was on Friday, and on Wednesday he hurt his hand. They weren't sure, but then after the game they announced, or let it get out anyway, that he had actually broken his hand. And according to McCarthy, he won't practice at all this week, and it remains to be seen how long he's going to be out. Now, this is interesting because he can play on special teams with his, hand in a club. He can, still be a gunner and all that kind of stuff, and he's very good at that. But I don't think he can play from scrimmage as a receiver with his hand in a club.
Or kick returns.
Yeah. And so it'll be interesting to see if they put him on injured reserve when it comes down to it. I don't have to make any decisions right now, but it will be interesting to see how they handle that, because it looked to me like he was going to make the team at least as much as a special teams player as he was as a offensive player. But now that there's no way he's going to be returning kicks for a while or playing from scrimmage, will they still have him make the team and have him be more of a gunner and defensive player on special teams essentially? Will they do that despite the broken hand? Or maybe they'll put him on injured reserve and you can have one person who's not out for the season. And I guess the rules have changed now too, Dave, where it used to be you had to designate when you put that person on injured reserve, you had to say, this guy is going to be our temporary injured reserve guy. Now I think the rule is you don't have to say that up front. You can bring somebody back, but you don't have to designate that person at the time you put him on there.
Okay.
So, it could be that he goes on injured reserve and they wait and see how things shake out, and then they decide if they want to bring him back or not. It does help in some ways, though, maybe put a little clarity around that wide receiver position. I didn't think they'd keep 7. I thought they might keep 6 at wide receiver. And with Janis maybe being out of it, plus the fact that he was having if you believe the thumbs up and thumbs down stuff you get through the media, it's not like he was having a crappy, training camp. Maybe this just makes it easier to say, okay, he's out of the mix, and the other 6 guys are going to be in.
Well, who are the 6 that you think? It's obviously Nelson, Cobb, Adams, Aberderis.
Right.
Who
was really featured in the game a lot, and he looked good, and he had a good return.
He did. And so that was one thing also is, could you look at this preseason game and say Aberderis looks really solid? They could use – well, I guess they have a number of their guys other than Nelson are kind of possession kind of guys. Cobb is a little bit different, but can Aberderis be a guy that you can just count on? He just catches everything. When it's 3rd and 8, you can count on him grabbing a ball off the ground and getting that first down. I was kind of excited. He's a Wisconsin guy,
Right,
so
yep.
I'm excited if he makes the team and is as a big part of the offense. Plus, on the punt, was it the punt return or the kick return? I guess it was a punt return. There was one that he had that looked really good.
Wasn't that
right?
Was that one after this one of the safeties? And again, is there anything more preseason than 3 safeties in a game? Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
but I think he might have been returning one of the free kicks, right? After
Oh, okay,
safety.
right.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
That's right. But he just
yards.
looked like.
Yeah.
I was hearing, you want is on a kick return, you want someone who's like a long strider who will pick a spot and go, and hopefully break a few tackles and you're gone. But a punt return, you've got to be able to be real shifty, kind of move in short space. And Aberderis looks like he's real good with that. So, maybe if they ultimately have Janis would be your typical long strider.
Right.
And I thought he did a decent job kick returning last year. Aberderis, you want a sure-handed person on the punt, makes good decisions, and then also can kind of juke guys out in space. That could be interesting. So, but you have Nelson Cobb, Adams, Aberderis. You probably want to keep
Montgomery.
Montgomery, right?
And the draft choice from Cal Davis, if I want to keep him.
Trevor Davis.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, so that's your 6. And I guess who is that leaves on your bubble? I guess that's Janis. Yeah.
And to me, it's unclear though what they're going to do with that injury. It would not surprise me to see him start the season on injured list, and then it'll kind of give him a chance to survey things and see if they want to bring him back from the injured reserve list.
But it didn't seem like that Trevor Davis flashed that much that you could probably get him on the practice squad.
Well, I'm not sure. He has unusual speed. He's the fastest guy they have. He's small, though. He's not even 190 pounds. And teams, though, with that kind of talent, the raw talent he has, that's the kind of guy that somebody would snap up. Just because he has that raw kind of talent. Even if he's not ready, he's got talent. So I'm not sure that they could expose him to waivers and hope to get him, to get him to the practice squad. I'm not sure that would happen.
Well, if you had to pick between Adams, Aberderis, and Montgomery, I don't want to throw Janis in that mix because I think you'd automatically say you kick Janis aside. But let's say they keep him, and it came down to Adams, Aberderis, and Montgomery. Who would you keep?
Well,
or who'd you get rid of?
I like Montgomery, but that ankle injury that kept him out most of last season, started off on the PUP list when training camp opened. It just makes you wonder, if he's a kind of a ticking time bomb.
I guess
Aberderis, when he's healthy, he looks good. But even in the game that we saw with Dr. Klaus in November this past season, Janis looked good, or not Janis, Aberderis looked good, but he took one in the ribs and missed a couple games after that. I mean, the guy had a concussion in training camp. He injured himself his first season. I mean, he seems fragile. I like it when he plays. I mean, he's good. He catches everything. He runs smart routes. He can return punts. But he's also, the kind of guy that gets hurt a lot. And then Adams was hurt last year too. And when he did play, there just was something, I don't know.
He was off.
Yeah. He kind of had that Derek Mays thing going on, where he had, all this latent talent, but it just never bubbled to the surface the way it did at times his first year. So is that just a sophomore slump? And because he was a little bit dinged up last year, I'm not exactly sure what to make of that. Now, you have the most investment in him. He was a second-round pick. Maybe you would hang on to him above the other two because you invested more in him. I think of the three of them, the guy who intrigues me the most is Montgomery because you can play him from the backfield. He's supposed to be a great kick returner. He's a solid guy, but you just wonder if that ankle injury is going to crop up again because it was so significant at one point. But he's the guy of the three that I probably like the best. It's, just that hanging over his head is that significant ankle thing. You just wonder about that.
Yeah. Well, if Nelson and Cobb play at a high level and then you have 4 guys that you are trying to figure out the mix, that's okay. Trying to slot in who's your third and fourth, that's much better than trying to figure out who's your two.
Right. Yeah.
Or who's your one. Thank goodness that this isn't the guys we're talking about for our ones and twos. Yeah. Although I'm anxious to see Nelson play. You think he'll play in any preseason game this year?
I'm not sure. He might play in like the last one, just to kind of knock some of the rust off. But what really concerned me wasn't so much the injury he had last year. It's when he starts the year because of an injury to the other knee, and it's tendinitis. And my experience with tendinitis is that it's a chronic kind of situation. Perhaps not as chronic as, say, Mason Crosby's problem, but that's a whole different matter. But I wonder if at 31 years old now, and one knee injury that seems to have caused a second knee injury, you wonder about Jordy Nelson. And when he was healthy, he was great, but he's on the wrong side of 30. And even if he plays, will he be the Jordy Nelson that we came to expect? I'm not sure about that. So I think they're going to be very, very careful with him because of that.
Yeah.
Maybe he plays in one game.
One game. Yeah, I mean, if he comes back and he's average, then these 3 or 4 guys we talk about, how we'll have a good offense is we can go 4 or 5 deep, and all of them can play at a pretty high level. That there's not a meaningfully drop off, and that that Rodgers can throw the ball right between the numbers for all these guys, and all they got to do is catch or run the right routes. Because of Nelson, if he comes back a shade of who he was, that's going to be really tough to handle. And I thought the offense looked good. I think they're definitely going to run the ball, try to be a very balanced offense. Balance with Aaron Rodgers being, 30% time of the run rather than 10% of the time run. But I think they're going to try to establish run more. I guess based on this preseason, like you said, it's really pretty meaningless. I don't know if this Packer offense is back to where it has been, or are they going to come out against Jacksonville and punt 3 times in a row and go, oh my gosh, it's the same.
Well, Jacksonville's supposed to be improved. That game will be on the road, be in Florida, so it's going to be hot. It's one of those, it's way too early to say, but ever since I saw that game on the schedule, it made me sort of think, is this the sort of game that's going to surprise everybody? You have an opening game on the road against a team where people kind of underestimate them, and the conditions are a factor, and the Packers wind up losing a game that everyone expects them to win. Now that's possible. I'm not saying that it's going to happen, or that this is going to signal some kind of a down season, but this is the kind of thing that happens in first games, because the team you see in the first 3 or 4 games very often isn't the team you see in the last 3 or 4 games. Right. We've talked about that in past years, and that's even more why the preseason it's hard for me to take it serious, because the team changes so much even from the first quarter of the regular season to the last quarter. What can you make from the games before the first quarter of the regular season? You're not going to see so many of these guys playing later on. Now, maybe we can say some things like, well, hey, Jason Spriggs played left tackle. He seemed like he moved pretty well. He got knocked on his ass one time, but he, popped right back up and made a block. That's a good thing. Maybe there's some signs of encouragement like that we can take away from some of this, but generally, I'm not really sure how seriously we should take what we saw. It was a nice 17-11 win. That was, again, better than losing at home 17-11. But I don't think we can really make any projections based on the game.
I agree. Well, why don't we take a break and come back and talk about what I think is more of a wild card is the defense for this team.
Yes, I think that would be a good topic for us because there were some things on the defensive side that were unusual, like Dayton Jones and things like that. So let's talk about that. Let's go into a break, but I want to remind people, because some people, do turn off the podcast at the break. PayPal. You can go to Packers Therapy at yahoo.com. you can give us money. Isn't that great? You can give us money. We're going to our 12th. We're getting old. Dave and I are getting old. It's our 12th season doing this. We're no longer kids. I want to be very clear on this point.
We have obligations.
We have tons of obligations, a lot of responsibilities. We are 12 years closer to the grave, each one of us, as a result. So don't you want to make our Golden Year special? Of course you do. This may be the last time Dave and I get to go to a Packer game, although I'll be going, I'll be going to the game on Thursday, though. But still, that aside, I didn't tell it. I'm going to be in a box on Thursday. Yeah.
Oh, no one's going to give now.
Yeah, I'm going to be in a box.
You've ruined any chance.
I know. Well, like anybody was going to give anyway.
Yeah.
So let's take a short break. This is the preseason version of Packers Therapy with Chris and Dave. Right back. Back with more Packers Therapy. Chris and Dave inaugurating our 12th season, preseason version. If this podcast sounds a little more rough than maybe our last podcast did, two reasons. One is, we've had, 7 months off in the meantime. And the last podcast we did, I was taking morphine. So that's
you were never better.
Yeah, I know. I was having a great time. Let me tell you about that. By the way, everything working just fine now. Yeah, so 570 miles walking since April 1st.
Wow, that's good for you.
I know. Yeah, that's pretty darn good.
Do you have a Fitbit that track that?
I've got an Apple Watch, and which is why we need people to contribute to our PayPal account, packerstherapy@yahoo.com, because you have to have a variety of watch bands to go with the Apple Watch, and they are not cheap, my friends.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you could be. It's better to walk than to drive in your Bentley that you have too. So
that is true. And since I was trying to drive on that morphine, lost my license, so that's why I'm doing all the walking these days. So
that's good. I was trying to unencourage people to give, but that's not the. We want people to give. We want people.
We want your money.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do.
So,
all right, defense.
Packers defense. Well, we mentioned in the first segment of the podcast, Micah Hyde with a really sweet interception down by the goal line. That was terrific. And, the defense looked, I thought, respectable. You had some guys playing in the middle that, maybe we haven't seen a lot of. I was kind of impressed with Dayton Jones as an outside linebacker, although I kind of got that feeling that he's kind of Mike Neal 2.0. Not that he's taking the special medicines that Mike Neal apparently was taking. That's a rumor and innuendo. We don't know anything about that.
That's right. Yes. Right. Well, but if he could be Mike Neal 2.0, but actually get the quarterback down,
that would be nice.
When he's unblocked, free shot at the quarterback, but seemed to always sort of fall off the quarterback every time. If Dayton can get the job done and get the quarterback to the ground, then that would definitely be an improvement from the Mike Neal. Where did Mike Neal go? Did you ever?
I don't think anybody signed him. I think it's because of the kind of the cloud hanging over his head. I don't believe he's been signed at this point. But I should double check and see. But I don't think anybody has picked him up.
Okay.
But we saw a lot of Bradford playing in the middle.
Right.
He's playing like a man who's in danger of losing his job, which I think probably he is. He was quite good at Arizona State, draft choice for the Packers at outside linebacker. He wound up being moved inside, and he was very active in the preseason game. Now, again, I don't know what to make of that. Hard to know, but they gave him a lot of opportunities, and he made some plays from the inside. So we'll see if he's got a chance to be a factor. I mean, they need help at inside linebacker, especially if Clay Matthews is going to play on the outside.
Right.
So Bradford, actually, I think he was one of the team leaders, right, in tackles.
I have his 3 tackles.
Yeah.
But the top leading tackler is Kentrell Bryce. I don't know if that good. Joe Thomas was 2. Beniquez Brown, who I watched the game, and I don't remember Beniquez Brown being mentioned.
But Joe Thomas, not only was he playing left tackle for the Browns, but then he was able to somehow play inside linebacker for the Packers. That's versatility.
That's actually pretty amazing. But yeah, I guess the overall theme. I mean, I'm looking through the guys, and there's about 20 guys on the tackle chart. The one thing that jumps out at me is Kyler Fackrell has the best name.
Yeah, you've got to be very careful how you say that. Well, we don't have to because we have a podcast. We can say it.
Right, we can put it.
But people who are getting paid for this.
Yeah, well, and I couldn't quite figure out. Did he get a concussion on his tackle, or he had a quarterback hit?
Again, when he came off the field, he lost his helmet, and I think maybe it's a rule in the NFL. If you lose your helmet, you have to go through the concussion protocol. And when he made his play, he lost his helmet, and I think they had to put him through that routine on the sideline. So I'm not sure. I haven't heard of him losing time now to a concussion, but we'll have to see. I think it's just standard NFL policy in the era of brain injuries and lawsuits.
Yeah, well, it's important. But I think in the three levels of the defense, I think the standard line right now is the defensive backfield is really talented.
Yep.
A lot of guys, they can go pretty deep.
Mm-hmm.
Even Micah Hyde sometimes I think gets lost in the conversation sometimes of Randall and other guys. But good backfield. The defensive line is light because B.J. Raji retired,
right. And Mike Pennell is going to be out the first 4 games he's going to miss as a result of off-season drug problems.
Right.
So he's going to miss time. So that does create a lot of openings there. It makes you wonder. They're going to have to get a lot from Kenny Clark.
And it sounded like he didn't have a great game.
No.
He didn't have a terrible game.
No.
It was just pretty pedestrian, but that he's had a good camp and that they're pretty excited about him. But they're leaning a lot on Kenny Clark and Mike Daniels. Those are two guys that they need to stay healthy and play well. But the linebacker spot is really interesting. You still have Peppers and Matthews. Right. The middle guys is kind of up in the air of what's going to happen there. They've got a lot of guys, a lot of young guys that could play. And, it's interesting to figure out what they're going to end up doing with the linebackers. So that's where preseason is interesting to me again is which of these linebackers are they going to keep? I mean, the Bradford, is he good enough to stay? Are they going to keep some of the young guys that they have coming in? I mean, there's a difference between clearly the inside and the outside linebackers who are outside seem to be more pass rushers. It seems like there's a lot of guys tied right now. And when you look at the tackle chart, there's a ton of guys with just 2 or 1 tackle. Who are the ones that are going to step up and make the team? I think that's a pretty interesting thing to watch.
I think if I'm J-Ron Elliott, I'm nervous.
Really?
Yeah. I think with Jones moving to linebacker and also moving Matthews outside again, I think Elliott is vulnerable at this point.
Expendable, huh?
I don't think it's expendable, but I think he's vulnerable anyway.
Okay.
And, Nick Perry is this is kind of a make-or-break year for him, so he's going to be motivated. I think also Dimitri Goodson is going to have to be nervous for what his future is going to be. He's also going to miss time as a result of off-season drug issues. So we'll have to see what's going to happen there. But those are a couple of returning guys that I think are on the bubble.
Yep. Well, in this game, it was hard to tell. I think J-Ron Elliott is really an intriguing guy because in the last preseason, I think he was probably the MVP of the defense
for
the preseason last year, right?
Yeah,
he made the team. And even in the regular season, he made some plays, not all the time. So, do you keep a guy like him, or does Fackrell make it because he's the rookie that it's one of your draft picks and you want to see how he can do? We'll see. I guess there's not a whole lot other than I think the defense is a big wild card for this team. This defense could be good, and maybe the Packers will be known as a team that can keep you to 14 or under, and the offense only has to basically beat that. And if they're not as strong as they were in 2011, they can still be good enough, as their defense is greatly improved. I think that's possible. It's just not, a sure thing right now.
I think their defense last year, I think, was solid enough. And I think Blake Martinez, who's a great name, is probably somebody that's going to help them in the middle. I'm not sure about Fackrell. Maybe. You move Matthews back outside. You've got Joe Thomas, also can play inside. He's smallish, but that's kind of an in vogue thing now. To have kind of
fast.
To have that tweener. He's like 227 pounds. He played for him last year, but he just if there's one thing you can glean, he did play with a lot of energy in this preseason game. He seemed to have a better idea of what he was doing out there than he did last season. So does it mean that, you're going to let go of some guys you had last year? I mean, they put a lot of emphasis on defense. Looking at the draft picks, they went defensive tackle, then the second round pick was Spriggs, but then linebacker, defensive end. So he used 4 of their first 5 picks on the defensive side of the ball, and typically they will, keep those guys. It's pretty rare that they cut in the first year a draft pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's question marks. I think we saw Fackrell and Martinez, move around okay. They look like they might have been all right. Dean Lowry may have even started on the defensive line, or he was in pretty early. I didn't really get a good feel for what he's like. I was watching Kenny Clark, and like you mentioned, he, I think he was getting an introduction to the NFL.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think it's there's nothing on the defense I look at and think they're in trouble. I guess the defensive tackle spot is a little concerned. I mean, they're one injury away from trouble and potentially being exposed, which is kind of a Ted Thompson thing, right? Is to leave one position every year kind of open. But I wonder if they'll go out and maybe sign somebody if he gets later, just to have that insurance policy. And they have extra wide receivers. Maybe that's trade bait for something on defensive tackle just to shore that up. My overall impression, though, my expectations is that this team makes the playoffs, and if they're healthy and, everything's going well at the end of the year, that they can make a run. The thing I don't like, and I don't know what you think about this, Chris, but I think in order to make the playoffs and make the Super Bowl, that there's kind of an X factor on the team. Like in 2010, I thought kind of Clay Matthews was that X factor. He was like a real unknown. He's kind of up and comer, and you always watched him. Now he's kind of a known quantity, and there's nothing on offense or on defense that's like, this guy is a real volatile situation. He can have high upside or maybe low downside, but if he's good, he's really good. Everyone seems to be just steady, right? I mean, we have guys like Rodgers and Matthews who can play excellent, but we don't have like a new X factor this year, and I kind of wish we did.
Well, yeah, but you don't know who's going to emerge. I mean, there could be, somebody who we're not necessarily anticipating. We talked a bit about Trevor Davis. He doesn't really look the part to me. He's smallish, but he might be, very dynamic in the return game. It could be that Montgomery is over his ankle problems, and he becomes a guy that they can use and becomes a dynamic player. It just you don't really know until the games start, and we don't know what is being planned by the coaching staff. I mean, they may have had plans for Janice that we are derailed now, but where they've been spending the offseason thinking, okay, we're going to put this guy into this position. This is what he can do. And we're gonna go ahead and do that. They may have plans like that right now for somebody that we don't know. You got Jared Abadaris. I mean, if he stays healthy, maybe he winds up being that guy from the slot. That's dynamic. We could see somebody else who's been maybe a little quiet reemerge. I mean, maybe having Randall Cobb returning to his normal role if Nelson comes back. Maybe he's a lot more dynamic player than he was last season.
Yeah, I think Jared Cook is one that gets close.
Sure.
He comes in and wow, that dude is catches the game and he's a real difference maker. Yeah, that could maybe serve as an X factor, but that's not Thompson's style, is to go out and draft someone who Kind of has like a sketchy past, but man, his upside could be great, like a Randy Moss or something. So I wish they had something. I hope someone does emerge as a second-year player that really steps up. You're right. I don't think the rookies side, it feels like they solidified special teams and backup situations. There's no other Blake Martinez. Actually, he sounds, that name you say is a great name.
Yeah.
He sounds like a main character from a video game. That's Blake Martinez and the Temple of Doom, so maybe he as a middle linebacker could really change that defense around. That maybe is a bit of an X factor. So we'll have to watch and see how that goes. But I don't know. I think we probably beat the defense today.
Yeah. I think one preseason game in, it's hard to know what to make of it. It's all right, fine. Let's have another preseason game and see if some of the guys that were like, okay, let's see if they can keep that up in the second game. And that is, I do get a chance to go to the game when one of our corporate friends has organized a trip, and so we're taking a ride over to going to use their box. But I'll also record the game so I can actually see it. That's the thing about either being at the game in the stands or especially in a box. It's hard to see, and a lot of times
for sure.
you wind up watching as much on TV in the box because you can see a heck of a lot better on TV than you can actually being at the game. But then you've got the experience, of course, that can't be replicated. So it will be interesting. I think maybe Rodgers plays. That will be nice by itself, just to be able to see him and his new slimmer, dairy-free Aaron Rodgers.
He's lactose intolerant.
Exactly,
apparently.
So, which is a horrible thing to be in Wisconsin, but
that's right.
If anybody can, manage it and still become popular, it's probably the two-time MVP. I thought it was nice that he went to Favre's induction, because so much has been made of kind of the tension between them. I'm glad that he, was at the ceremony.
Well, he was there.
Yeah.
They were playing in the game.
Well, I know,
got canceled.
but he didn't, have to go to that. But I'm glad that he did.
I am too. Although, did you see the look on his face when Favre first said, "I'm going to ask McCarthy and see if I can play the first series"? I thought they went to Rodgers, and the look on his face was not the best. It wasn't just sort of laughing about it. I thought maybe that's just my impression of Rodgers, that I just think he's kind of an arrogant guy. But I thought the look on his face was
well, he's probably too concerned about UFOs, which we found out in the off season is something that apparently he put some credence in. Or he was maybe
what?
This UFO thing. He's kind of a UFO guy.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, I think he's got a tinfoil hat.
Where did that come out?
Yes, he was doing some podcasts, not ours,
No, clearly.
No, I wonder if he was on our podcast. Do you think people would give to our PayPal account? Yeah. And how much do we have there right now?
The order goes, if you give, then we'll get Rodgers.
That's right. If we can get, we'll need like $10,000 in order to lure him into the podcast.
We'll definitely use it, or for some good cause, I'm sure.
Well, we need more wealthy benefactors who like Packers therapy. That's all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think of the Favre speech and the whole ceremony?
I thought it was the whole ceremony. I find it insufferable, but because it was Brett Favre, it's you put up with it. I mentioned this on Twitter in my personal account. I didn't realize how much scar tissue remained on the whole Brett Favre thing until the induction. And I guess I thought I had gotten over things a lot better than I had. I guess I'm not as magnanimous yet for whatever reason. It just, I don't know. I'm not fully ready to embrace the guy. And I guess 2008 is still too close to me for some reason.
Too soon for you.
It's too soon, yeah. And a lot of people have been, it's been all good for them, and I think that's great. But I don't know. It wasn't the jersey in the locker, the Vikings jersey. It wasn't that. It's just I don't view the guy the way I once did. And when he retired the first time, the tearful thing, I think it was March of 2008, and he went out that way. That was the peak for me. That this is a guy who was really a Packer. What a great guy! Look how much he cared about the team, and this was a magnificent moment, and I felt great. And then when he began jacking around in the summer, it was like, really? Are you going to do that? I mean, it was so great the way he went out, that to have this all happen again, it left a really bad taste in my mouth, and it hasn't gone away. It's still lingering with me, and I guess and the fact that he had such a great 2009 season was made it worse. Although it ended in the most Brett Favre way ever, which I have to say it makes me laugh to this day.
Yeah, I wonder how long it would take me, because I'm not with you. I was ready to embrace him back, and I really enjoyed the speech. But had Minnesota won the Super Bowl that year, and you'd had to sit on that all off season, I wonder if that would have made it longer for me and for others. Thank goodness that did not happen.
Oh boy, that would have been the end for me. But I don't know. I just won't view. I mean, it would be as if for us who were Wisconsin guys, if Robin Yount had decided that after spending his entire career with the Brewers had decided, I got that 3,000. I think I'm going to come back and play. Oh, you don't want me in Milwaukee, so I'm going to go play for. In those days, would have been the White Sox or the Twins. Yeah. It's just like, really? That just struck me as totally wrong.
Well, Paul Molitor did that. Did you?
Well, it wasn't Molitor's deal because the Brewers decided not to sign him, and so he went then and he signed with Toronto, and that was that wasn't because of anything he did. That was because Sal Bando was stupid and ensconced himself as being the worst general manager in Brewer history. But we'll talk more about that on Brewers Therapy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I don't. For me though, I thought his speech was funny. I thought it was. They say it's supposed to be 10, 15 minutes, and he went 30.
Was it? Yeah.
34 minutes was it?
It was like the longest speech in Hall of Fame history. Is that right?
Is that right? He thanked his son-in-law and thanked his mom and mother-in-law. A lot on his dad, which I think is more than fair. But I watched the whole thing and enjoyed listening to it. I mean, the part of him being a father and talking about, actually, I think he talked more about being a father, more about his father and his influence on him. I wonder what kind of father he was to his kids all the way through. Maybe he was great. I have no idea.
I bet he was a fun dad when he was on Vicodin.
Yeah. I'll bet he was. I wonder. Well, he certainly wasn't around very much, probably.
Yeah.
But I thought the story he told about his dad. He said he was listening outside the coaching office, and his dad didn't realize he was sitting there. And he had just had a bad game, and his dad had said to their coaches something to the effect of, "Don't worry, my son will come through the next game. He's got it in him. He'll come back." And he said he overheard it, and he never talked to his dad about the fact that he heard it. And he said ever since that day, he's been trying to live up to his dad's sort of statement of, you've got it in you. And he was proud of him, even though he maybe never verbally said it. I thought that was really heartfelt. I mean, it hit home for me. I think, for thinking about my dad and my kids, I thought it was really very genuine. And he has made mistakes, but who hasn't sent pictures to a reporter now and then? But besides that, but he seems like a genuine guy, right? I mean, I still think he's the guy who wants to have fun playing. Although a couple of statements of him saying, like, I had a lot of records, and that's pretty amazing. I thought there's a few times where he
was channeling Donald Trump. Huge.
I was huge. You're my guy that ran the wishbone or the T-bone or whatever it was, and now I had all the passing records. There are a few things that, but why not? You're going to the Hall of Fame, so I thought I enjoyed his speech at least, and I thought it was very genuine. And I'm ready to kind of embrace him now as a Packer. I think it's a shame that he's got a Minnesota Vikings jersey in that Hall of Fame locker. What do they have for him? Yeah. But he said, make no doubt about it, I'm going in as a Green Bay Packer. And how great was it that all those fans that were there from Green Bay? I mean, I wonder if they have ever had a Hall of Fame ceremony like that with so many fans from one team.
I don't know, but Packer fans travel well. And, they always have and probably always will. The real test of that will be after Aaron Rodgers hangs it up. And, we will see what becomes of the team, that could be 5 years from now. And we'll see how well people travel. I'm sure they'll travel for Aaron Rodgers' induction at Canton, too. But he doesn't have the cult of personality
that
right. Favre has. And there'll be people there, but people really bonded to the image of, who Brett Favre was. He did not have a lot of gloss. He was a hunting and fishing guy. Even though he was from a different part of the country, I think people who were Packer fans really identified with who they thought that guy was. And part of it, I think, was the fact that he was flawed and that he was a partying guy, and even his addiction problems, I think, made him more relatable than his old man dies. And I mean, there was a lot of things that reveal a kind of humanity that I think a lot of fans could latch onto. And Rodgers has none of that. I mean, Rodgers is going to be 32 years old in December. He's not married. He's got, no kids. He's got a rift with his brother, apparently. Which
his whole family.
Yeah, which you followed The Bachelorette, right? I mean, you watched that whole thing. I did not watch it. I've heard about it when his brother won that, and then all this stuff comes out that apparently Aaron's not getting on well with his brother and the family. I'm not really sure what's going on, and I've never really warmed up to Rodgers anyway, so I kind of let it go in one ear and out the other. He's a guy who, while I was very interested in the off-field parts of Brett Favre, like a lot of people were, I could care less about Aaron Rodgers off the field. He just doesn't. He's not a guy that I think I would hang out with and have a very good time with.
No, I don't think so either. But I do watch The Bachelor, Bachelorette when it comes on. My wife watches it. I have people at work that watch it, and so it's a fun show to watch. To talk about. Even watching it, I mean, it's certainly kind of trashy and makes you feel kind of stupid, but it's really entertaining to watch. Well, so now Jordan Rodgers is on there, and not only is it his brother, but I mean, he looks like a younger version of Aaron Rodgers. Right. He talks like him, he looks like him. So I'm watching it, and it's almost like it is Aaron Rodgers on the TV, trying to compete for a girl with all these other dudes, and they had a bunch of competitions where if you win this competition, you get to have special time with the Bachelorette.
Hey, special time. I like special time. But
there's special time and there's
very special time now.
Yeah, and that's later in the series. Mm-hmm. But there's a bunch of football related like contests, and he did real well at those.
I would imagine so. He played quarterback at Vanderbilt, right?
He did play. Yep, but they listed him as a former NFL quarterback.
Yeah, didn't he must have had a cup of coffee with somebody, maybe his practice squad or something?
Yeah, and then I think at the very end he was with the Canadian Football League and then just left. Yeah. I think he just stopped. But he was a super charming guy. You could tell from right away that the Bachelorette liked him, and he ended up winning.
Yes.
So he won. But as you're watching, I'm thinking hometown dates. Can't wait to the hometown date, where you take the girl to meet your family,
right.
And as the dates are going along, she's asking him, so when I see your family, so what's that going to be like? And he kind of kept hemming and hawing, and she finally came out and said, so am I going to meet your brother? What's his name? And he's like, my older brother Frank or whatever. Yeah. She's like, no, the other one. And Aaron. And then it's just all of a sudden he's like, yeah, I don't really talk to him. and don't have much relationship with him anymore. And then they do the hometown, and his parents also say that we really don't have much relationship with him anymore, which I was shocked, because if you listen to Wildy's podcasts, where Aaron Rodgers was on, and he talked a lot about going to see his brother play, and I felt he was really close to his family, right? And it seemed that this was a real – I mean, he might have been an arrogant guy, but he was solid with his family. Yeah. And this was a complete shocker to me. And so, of course, I go online, look it up, and everything I can tell is that it's Olivia Munn's fault.
That's kind of what I've heard as well. And I don't know, she seems like kind of an interesting person. Isn't her mother Vietnamese? And she's apparently really smart. And I'm not a fan of her acting, especially.
I thought you were a big fan of her.
Oh, well, I am a fan of her, but her acting I'm not crazy about. I mean, I thought her bit in the newsroom, the HBO show, I liked the show. She always struck me as being wooden. I mean, she was on The Daily Show for a while, and I just never thought she was very good as an actress. I mean, she's nice to look at, and she's apparently very smart, and she's got an interesting backstory. But I don't know. She doesn't do much for me as an actress, but I figured that she's, probably a pretty squared away person. But whatever it is, I think maybe wasn't Rogers very close with like a high school sweetheart, and he threw her over for Munn, and maybe that was part of the problem with the family, that they knew and liked this local girl. They were like church camp counselors together or something like that, and then Olivia Munn comes and turns Aaron's head, and the next thing we know, he's lactose intolerant.
I never knew until Olivia came on.
When he was dating the church girl, he was fine. I mean, cheese, milk,
it
was fine.
Right.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he starts dating the Hollywood girl, and now he can't have cheese. Huh? The hell is that about?
Well, we all got to pay. Well, look at he's been to the Oscars now.
Oh, yeah.
He's running in a different crowd, and so I get that. Life. He's got all the demands as an NFL quarterback, and then he's got this free time, which is Hollywood, right? I mean, he's a huge celebrity, so I mean, I assume I can see what happened here. This guy's been is big time to his family. Or maybe his family's been a real jerk about the whole thing. Maybe they're always asking for Oscar tickets, and he's like, enough is enough. You just never know. But it seems apparent that there's a rift going on. And, there wouldn't be the first time that someone's career starts to go down that coincides with problems going on in your personal life. Tiger Woods is one.
Oh, that was that hasn't recovered. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so on the one hand, it's sort of gossipy and it's none of our business and stuff like that, but it certainly could be a factor. And he had his worst year last year, even though statistically it still was a very good year. And there are lots of things contributing to it.
Well, a good way for people who are concerned about this situation with Aaron Rodgers to feel better about it is to make a contribution to PackersTherapy@yahoo.com via PayPal. If you give money to that, you feel a lot better about the Aaron Rodgers situation, about your own miserable life. And so that's why I suggest that people get involved with this PayPal situation. Do you agree with me on that?
You've ruined it. No one's going to give now. You've put it way too much.
People shouldn't give. This is our money to give this for free.
Well, hey, should we go through? We got a few wrap-up things before we end. I'll just go through two of them. One is the betting line.
Yes.
I thought we're not going to do betting lines for preseason games.
Ridiculous.
Come on. But we will do it for regular season if people like it. So I thought if people could email
Mike
us.
is back. Mike's got to come back to do the tabulations.
That's right. Mike is if Mike's not back, then someone needs to step in.
Exactly.
Or we're out. And also, if people don't feel like doing it, we do it. We've done it some years when we stopped. We came back to it.
Right.
I think people have liked it. I thought the numbers were up last year of people participating. Yep. And it's easier for me to do if Mike's willing to help out or someone wants to be the intern. That would be fantastic. So let us know what you think about the betting lines. I did want to thought about adding anything else, any kind of bits that we might do.
For instance,
I have one.
Just give me a for instance of what that would be.
I have one, and the other I was going to ask for requests.
Okay.
People had good ideas. But I think I want to do this one.
Okay.
And we'll call it Question of the Week.
Oh, okay.
And can you remind people what our email address is?
Well, our email address, you mean the one with PayPal?
Well, that one actually will come to me, so they can use PackersTherapy at yahoo.com.
Let's make it clean. PackersTherapy at yahoo.com. You can send an email there, or you can go to PayPal, and you can pay some money to get this podcast, which we're already getting for free.
Feel free to do both.
Please.
So I thought Question of the Week would be any question. It could be football, Pack-related.
Don't you guys have a life? Why are you still doing this 12 years later?
Right. What made you think people would give money?
Exactly.
A Question of the Week. Reason I thought of the Question of the Week bit is because I listened to a movie podcast, and they've been going through some questions, and they're like bigger picture questions, not just specific about a movie. Like I said, for an example, was if you go to a movie with another dude, do you sit next to each other, or do you have a buffer seat between you? Or there's another where they said if you find a DVD redeemable code, those digital codes that when you buy a DVD, if you rent a movie at the library and there's a digital code, is it immoral to, redeem the code and get the movie for yourself? So, it was big picture questions. I suppose football, it could be, do you think that teams should always go for it on fourth down? Or so I thought Question of the Week, it could be anything. I thought we will mention your name and say question, and then we will use our many years of wisdom to respond to that question.
Please, yes.
So,
and that's PackersTherapy at yahoo.com.
Yes. And then if there are any other things that you think would be a good idea, and we think that it's a good idea as well, and maybe we'll incorporate it as well. But I think, so we have betting lines, Question of the Week, and then, of course, pop culture, which I do want to continue to do because not only do we give you a piece of what we enjoy, but people then respond back to things they like, and it's given me a lot of really good ideas. Do you have any pop culture this week?
I do. I've spent the off season watching a lot of stuff.
Oh, but don't go through every.
Oh, well,
you got to pick a few.
During the season, I will go through them all. But for right now, I'll just focus on one. Did you watch The Girlfriend Experience?
Wait, did I?
No,
watch
I
it?
didn't ask if you're living the Girlfriend Experience. I'm asking if you've watched the Girlfriend Experience. It's on FX. I believe.
A spit take on my computer screen. No, I haven't.
Well,
is that what is that on?
I think it's on FX. I think is where it was.
Is it on Netflix though?
Oh yeah, that way. I think Netflix or Hulu or one of those. Yeah, I think that's the way we watched it.
Okay.
But it's actually a 30-minute drama series about a law student who decides to go all Susie favor and become a call girl. Yeah. And it's actually very good and uncomfortable, and I recommend it strongly.
Really?
Yes, it's a very good show.
How many seasons is it?
One, I think.
One.
Yeah,
okay.
I think it's only one. I think the second one's in production. I think. Yeah.
So you are recommending the Girlfriend Experience?
Oh, I definitely recommend the Girlfriend Experience. I also recommend the show.
That's another reason to give to PackersTherapy at Yahoo.com.
Because it's that kind of salacious humor that's worth 50 cents a week. Damn it!
Well, no, if Chris is going to have his Girlfriend Experience, he needs.
If I'm going to have it, we have to have this money at our PayPal account. Okay?
That don't come free.
Exactly. In more ways than one. Yeah. Okay.
Do you watch that alone? Well, I guess I really don't know details.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So not your son.
Yes, we watch it together.
Okay, well, that's very special.
Well, most of our shows together.
Anything else?
Well, yes, I do. I could go on for an hour. I've watched a bunch of stuff. Klaus sent me an email the other day, and I listed all the stuff. I'll give you one more, one that's on right now, that's in the middle of a season. But I'm watching The Night Of on HBO.
Oh yes, I've not started that, but I've heard of
yes.
it, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, it is. It is quite good. I do recommend it. Although I understand more recent episodes, which I haven't caught up on, have not been quite as good as the first 4, which I've watched so far. But the first 4 that I've seen are excellent. and I do strongly recommend that on HBO, The Night of.
Okay, I know that's a good one. For me, I have many things I've done in the off season for myself. One thing I thought I'd just quickly mention in case our overseas listeners haven't heard this, but from Making a Murderer, the nephew Brendan
Dassey.
Dassey
Brendan
is
Dassey.
been released.
Well, he's not been released. Okay,
his charge overturned?
Well, not exactly. The situation with that is a federal judge, and in the United States there are state courts and there are federal courts, and if you don't get what you want at the state court level, you can appeal to the federal courts. A federal magistrate has told the state court that they have 90 days to give him a new trial or set him free. So they may still decide, the local authorities in the state court may decide to retry Brendan Dassey, the mentally challenged. He was actually a minor at the time of this murder that was at the center of Making a Murderer. So if they decide not to try him, he will be released from prison, which he's served 11 years so far. But they do have the option of retrying him, but they have to do it within 90 days.
Interesting. Well, I thought I'd give an update on that because we talked about that during last season.
I was really high on morphine, so I don't remember.
Yeah, I think we did, and that was an interesting development. But I have one book that's been my book of the summer. I don't know if we've talked about it, and it's I actually got into a kick pretty much all the off season of getting books that were not self-improvement, but more kind of
and you need a lot of self-improvement.
I do, but it's like more economic, like Freakonomics. Have you read Freakonomics?
I've read parts of it that have been excerpted places, yes.
Yeah, and so kind of books that are more like thinking about things different ways or kind of challenging myself, not just to read just novels. And I read one book called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb, I think.
Yes.
He wrote The Black Swan.
Yep.
And it is
not personally, but I know, yeah.
Yes. I don't know if you've heard about this book, but it's very, very good. It's not an easy read. It's this guy is an academic, but his premise is that the opposite of fragile is not to be sturdy or strong, because that means if you shake something, it'll break, and strong is if you shake it, nothing happens, and anti-fragile means if you shake it, it gets actually stronger. And he goes through a number of areas of life and business where, as you go through volatility, there are certain areas of life, things you should cultivate to make yourself stronger through volatility. And that book has really had quite a bit of an impact. It affects all kinds of things you do, the way you raise your kids, the way you think about your job, lots of things. So if you are wanting to challenge yourself in your reading, I would recommend Anti-Fragile as a book. And my second and last one is a movie I saw last night, which I really liked. My daughter made me go to a movie, and she would not tell me the name of it. And
just daughter number one or daughter number two?
Daughter number one.
Okay. Yes.
And we ended up seeing Florence Foster Jenkins. Have you heard of this movie?
Sounds like somebody falling down the stairs.
Florence Foster Jenkins. It stars Meryl Streep.
Oh, yes, I have heard of this then, yes.
And maybe you have heard of it's based on a true story of this woman who supported the arts in New York, was a horrible singer, but her husband basically hid to her the fact that she was a horrible singer, and she ended up having concerts, but he would pay everyone off to not tell her she was terrible.
No, that's true love right there.
It's very complicated how the whole thing plays out, but it's a very good movie. I don't want to give up much more than that, but it's kind of lighthearted in a way because she sings so terribly.
This is what I've heard, yes.
and Meryl Streep,
who had
that
to
woman
sing badly for the yeah.
And but the story, especially since it's based on a true story, of all the stupid action movies I saw this summer, this movie of that I would never have picked on my own. It might be one of my favorites of the summer. So if you have to go out, especially if you have a date night, Florence Foster Jenkins is I didn't use it as a date night with my daughter, but it would be a very good date movie. So that's my pick.
You know, Meryl Streep's daughter is in the second season of Mr. Robot.
Is that right?
Yes, Grace Gummer is in the second season of Mr. Robot. So
I like Mr. Robot the first season. I have not watched the second yet.
I've watched just the extended episode 1 was actually in 2 parts, and I did watch that.
Okay. It's on the list.
You know, I'm actually reading a book too, but this is going to make you smirk. All right. In fact, all the listeners will smirk. It's called Everybody Behaves Badly. It's the true story behind Hemingway's masterpiece, The Sun Also Rises. And it's about Hemingway in Paris in 1925 when he hung out with these people that he based The Sun Also Rises on. So if you like sort of that lost generation kind of thing, I haven't completed this yet, but I think the history is pretty well known to people when he was there between the wars. So so far so good. If you like that sort of thing, Everybody Behaves Badly is the name.
All right. I will. That's probably not. Although people are not going to listen to our recommendations anymore if we don't pick some fun stuff. But
this is fun. This is good. This is good. These are people living lives with debauchery. Come on, Paris 1925. Come on, this is great.
All right. Well, next week I might go watch Sausage Party, and I'll report on that one.
Yeah, I haven't seen this. I have been reading about it. That does sound like right down your alley, Dave. So.
Well, it's a big sign at the theater. It's like Sausage Party is not a movie for kids.
Really? Now that's a shock.
Well,
that's a shock.
It's animated. It's animated, so I can see where one can be confused.
Oh my.
Anyway.
Okay. Well, that's going to wrap it up, eh? I think that's about it. Thank you. If you've made it this far in the podcast, thank you for dealing with all of our first episode of season 12, kind of working out the kinks and all of our comments about the PayPal thing. We hope that you'll do it, but we don't fault anybody for not doing it. If you do, we'd be happy. We'll be delighted to acknowledge your support. If you give over $10, we'll do something special for you with a podcast later in the season. So we do appreciate that. And it's nice to be back with the podcast. Nice to be back at the cusp and the front end of a Packer season. They win the opener, well, not the opener, but the opener of the preseason. They will do it again against the Oakland Raiders Thursday night at Lambeau Field. I will be in attendance. I'll watch it later. I bet you Dave will watch it later too, and we'll be back in a week or so to give you our impressions of that one. But until that time, I'm Chris.
And I'm Dave.
And that's Packers Therapy. I'm Chris.
And I'm Dave.
And that's Packers Therapy.